Okay, like I mentioned today, we're going to be talking about ranking up. I did mention a little bit earlier about what the class is going to be about, but just again, just so you guys can get it right into it, we're going to be talking about things that you can do, tips that you can use to essentially get an edge on the games that you're going to be playing. The new act is going to be coming up, the new episode's going to be starting. So, big reminder to do your placements. Okay, a lot of people are kind of skipping out on those. I'm going to be giving you guys some tips that you guys can use to do your placements. Okay. Big reminder again, thank you guys for the support in the past few videos, and it makes me pretty happy, really. And thank you guys for the subscriptions and the likes. Big reminder, we're doing a C9 jersey raffle. So if you want to participate, once we reach 1,000 subscribers, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This is going to give you an entry. All right, so let's get straight into it. On to the video. So the first few things that we're going to be discussing are mindset, and then the other things that we're going to be covering are tips that you can use to win more games. Okay, when it comes to winning, there's only going to be so many things that you can cover. There's so many videos that already talk about mechanics and peeking and making sure that you're always hitting their bullets, right into their head. We're not going to be talking about just shoot the forehead. Okay, we're going to be talking about things you can do in your game that you can implement right away. That might not have to do with the whole idea of getting better mechanically. Okay, so let's look into that and let's see things that we can look at. The first one is going to be mindset, and I've talked about a lot of this in the past about things that you should be doing to get better with your mindset. With the new act coming in, I need you guys to be really prepared to do these placements. Okay. So every single time you're ready to play, I need you guys to assess if you're ready to play. A lot of people think that replacements don't matter, and to some degree they might not, but if you're in the lower scale, maybe you're in silver, maybe you're in gold, they do matter a little bit more. And I'm going to get right into that in just a second, but I need you guys to understand that you need to do your placements, and the strategy in which you tackle these placements depend on the type of playstyle you're going to be tackling. So the way you're going to be handling, rather. So for example, let's say that you're somebody that's just loves to get their placements done. You want to pump out big numbers in terms of how many kills you're doing, right? You're a high ranking player. You want to get those placements done ASAP. You want to make sure that you're doing them as quickly as possible, because what's going to happen is when you play those 10 placements, people are still going to do their placements, and we're going to have a lot of different people that are going to be trying different things. And the reason that most players like to start and do their placements ASAP is because they might be able to ride a wave. The wave is essentially players that are from higher ranks coming down to lower ranks, and then they're slowly also trying to get themselves back up. Okay, so if you're somebody that is already in the high ranks, I suggest that you do your placement really quickly so you can get onto that wave, so you can climb really quickly, because some people tend to be a little bit more confident in their placements and they tend to win a little bit more. So if you get those players on your team after you've already completed your placements, it's a very high likelihood that you're going to be winning more games. But there's other things that you can do. And this is where, again, that mindset comes in. When you're ready to tackle your placements, I need you to think about the games you're going to be playing and how you're going to be playing them. If you're somebody that's already burning out, okay, you're hitting that burnout, you're coming back and you're getting reintroduced to the game, then this is where you tackle it a little bit different. When I mentioned that you should be looking at how to climb and to look at those mindset guides that I've done in the past, a lot of players don't really come in with the idea of improving. They don't come in with the idea of, I want to play the game. They're just going through motions. And what I tell players that are going through motions is you gotta make sure that before you start, you do an assessment. Did you sleep? Did you eat? Did you drink water? Any of that stuff really matters when it comes to these things, because you're not going to perform well if your body's not ready to perform. And that's just the thing when it comes to these quote-unquote esports games. Okay, they're still sports to some degree, right? You still need that mental energy. You still need to make sure that you assess. And then what happens is, if you're still in that burnout stage, or you're still someone that's coming back, play that game, play a really good game. Like, give it your all. Talk all the time, be hyperactive, be somebody that anybody can talk to in that particular game, be somebody else if need be, and then assess again. After I played that game, how do I feel? If the answer is I don't feel like I want to do it again, then don't play again. And this is how you can use the strategy of spacing out your placements. Because what's going to happen is you're going to go through it again. Your energy's low. Somebody that really wants to win is going to be on the opposite side, and they're going to ruin your night. Okay, I love it. I love playing games that ruin my night. I get it, but it should not be that way if you're somebody that's burning out or coming back. Okay, this is the strategy that I give to players if they're looking to either climb really quickly or coming back, or they're coming back. Okay, so let's look at that. Secondly, When you're looking into mindset, you need to make sure you're prepared to pick an agent that really fits you, especially for the placements or a little bit past the placements. And this is going to be in regards to how you play the game generally. If you're going to be someone that wants to climb right at the beginning, I need you to make sure that you pay attention to the agent that you're going to be playing either per map or overall. There's two forms of agents that you can pick. Either they're ranked intensive, either they're characters that you can perform really well with because they're meant for ranked, or you can do really good things with them when it comes to ranked. For example, Skye used to be that character that you could pick really easily. She's no longer the case anymore. Fade used to be that character that you could use when she was really good. Not anymore, right? ISO before the nerf would have been that character for you. And characters that just remain pretty stagnant, but at the same time on that same vein, like Jet, Reyna, they fit pretty well. Okay, so look at those ranked intensive characters if you're somebody that wants to use performance to do better in your games. So if you're somebody that wants to climb based on performance alone, then these are the characters for you. Usually you can look at what things tend to work best for you. So for example, maybe you do better with the heal, maybe you do better with the dash. Make sure you're paying attention to what works best for you. But I encourage you to look at those particular agents if you're going for a more ranked intensive playstyle. If you want to be a little bit more supportive, then look into the map intensive agents that are must picks on certain maps. So for example, I hate playing Ascent without a Sova. Like, I cannot tell you how difficult it is to get a good sight hit without a Sova. It is very difficult for you to figure out where anybody is on the map, especially in a map like Ascent, without a Sova. So if I was somebody that was having a really hard time playing, and I was playing a ranked intensive character, and I had a Sova on my team, right? I can tell them where to put the arrow and the dart, that might help me out. But if I don't have a Sova on my team, I'm going to really struggle. And these are where these players that are not really good mechanically can really shine. You just need to know maybe some basic stuff. You don't even need to know lineups to be successful, right? Other things, Viper on Icebox, just know basic setup, you'll be fine. For these ones, you might have to do a little bit of research. It's not really that difficult. I really don't think you're going to have a hard time discovering which agents are going to be useful for that map. But if you're somebody that plays on the lower ranks, and that's usually like gold and maybe sometimes below, it's really easy to just kind of pick whatever and you're still going to be successful. But normally I kind of encourage you guys to just kind of look up some agents. Okay, if you're in the gold and below, you can pick whoever and you'll still be fine. But try to do some research. Sometimes it's not as difficult as you think. You can look at map guides, you can look at agent guides, and most of the time, if you're already somebody that likes an agent, you're going to find a guide that tells you these agents fit on these maps. Okay, a little bit of research, you should be okay. If somebody wants me to do that type of guide, I can do that in the future. Okay, so pick an agent. So again, do your placements, figure out what kind of placement playstyle you want to do, and then figure out what agents you're going to be playing if you're going to be ranking up quickly. Now, let's talk a little bit about how you can actually win games. And this is where the actual, guide comes in. Let's talk a little bit about selfishness. Okay? Not every single team is going to be a winner. Not every single team is going to be good. And I need to really hammer that point back again. A lot of people still bring this question up. What do I do when this happens? What do I do when this happens? Some teams are just going to be lost causes, okay? They're not going to be good for your mental, and they're not going to be good for you in general, okay? Sometimes it's a GG go next, and that's okay. You guys need to be okay with the fact that some teams are not going to be it. Okay, if you're someone that really derives value out of how good you're doing or how many games you're winning, these might be the more difficult tasks to really get over. Getting over a bad team. But I can easily tell you that there's some ways to get around it. Number one, if you're somebody that has someone, for example, in your team or someone in the team that already has like a team-oriented player. So for example, let's say, like I mentioned, that Sova, right? You can point out potential plays. So this one's really easy. If there's someone that is pretty receptive, you can do things like, hey, can you throw me a knife here? Can you do this for me? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be something. Now, if you're someone that doesn't know what the right thing is, you can do easy things. Like, for example, we have this Discord. You can ask questions. Hey, what should I have done here? There's things like you can ask me, hey, this happened. What do I do? There's things like looking up guides for certain characters. This Sova was doing a thing and I didn't know what they were doing. You can look up a guide, right? This is how you can build game sense. This is how you can build better ideas on how to get better at the game. And last, pro play, right? Everyone knows pro play. If you're someone that likes to watch esports, that's a really easy way to figure out what plays are good. The second one is to ask to be enabled or ask to be enabled or ask to enable someone. If you're not really familiar with the term enabling, it's something that derives from like more MOBA-like games, and that's essentially where you're basically overpowering a particular person or a particular player in your team, and you're giving them way more resources so they turn out to be a little bit better than they normally are, right? So a good example of this is tanks on Overwatch. You know, if you play Overwatch, you would enable a tank so they're a little bit more beefy in the field. Maybe, for example, you're playing League and you like to give your ADC a little bit more help, right? Things like that. In this game in particular, the only way that you're going to be enabled is by either having a trade, by having someone flash for you, smoke for you, or give you some form of utility, or last but not least, hold your back in some way. So a good example of this is being enabled by simply holding a cross. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't matter what rank you're on. If you say something like, hey, can you help me hold this angle for me? You can just ask for little things like that, right? But again, this is where that first thing that I talked about, if they cannot fulfill these easy requests, then give up on them. I hate to be that guy. I really preach about team play all the time, but if you're going to be ranking up, if you're not someone in a team-oriented environment and you're just playing ranked, sometimes you have to give up on your team. And this is why I encourage players that the only way you're going to derive value is through picks, okay? Look for the first point of contact. Look for that first fight. Maybe it's mid, maybe it's right here by B main, right? Anything like that, you're going to provide value by giving yourself more numbers. It's also going to lessen the blow if you do lose, because you'll say to yourself and protect your ego, oh, I got 20 kills. My team sucked. And even though it is a little bit more delusional and I'm feeding a more delusional based ideology on this, you're going to be fine for your next game. And again, it's part of the ranking up process. We all kind of have to do it. It's part of the coping process. We all have to do it. Okay. Some teams will not work out, and that's okay. But I need you guys to provide value in some way. And if it means lurking, if it means being that Reyna lurk, if it means that your team is going A, and then you're like last minute, you run over to B so you can catch someone off guard on B, then so be it. You cannot be there for everybody, and that's okay. You're not supposed to be their babysitter. That's not how these games are meant to be played in ranked, and that's okay. If your team is not responsive, you're not responsible. Simple. Next is going to be about being deliberate. If you're not really too familiar with what this means, is you need to be conscious about your decisions. You need to be aware of what decisions you're making. You need to be a little bit more, you need to have more intention behind your decisions. So for example, I choose to pick this guy here because I'm going to get more picks for my team because I realize this is what works. Okay, look at why you lost. Why did you lose the fight? Was it your spray? Did you peek wrong? Did they have an op? Did you need a flash, right? Why did you not get traded? Were you alone? If that was the case, then you weren't really going to expect anything there. You just needed to win that fight. Why didn't you get traded? I overextended. I stood too far behind. I didn't rotate with my team. I should have left the site. Answer those questions. Why did you lose the round? Things like, I could have clutched, or I could have given my team a little bit more information, or I still had my full kit, like I still had like all my flashes or something like that. You can ask yourself questions that will give you a little bit more of an edge when it comes to identifying those mistakes. And again, not every decision you make will be valuable, but you need to figure out what exactly you did that round that could have made a difference. And I don't want you to overthink and be like, oh, I could have done this and this and that. I need you to just start somewhere, but I don't want you to feel too heavy on that fact. I need you to just figure out what worked, what didn't, what might work in the future, and just try something. And this is what brings back again that mindset aspect that I talked about. If you're doing your placements and you're just doing it to try out things, that's okay. You're just trying out things. Be my guest. Use that information and grow with it. That's what I need you to do. Now, let's talk a little bit about another aspect that might help you win more games, and that's the downtime or dead space concept. Okay, so downtime, it's basically when you have nothing to do. It could be something as simple as you're playing over here and maybe you're waiting for a quick rotation. Maybe your team asks you to play off site. Maybe you're a controller and you need to play away from the team because you're dying too quickly. I don't know. Something's happening. Dead space is essentially where you're not going to be offering any quick help to your team. You're not going to be offering any form of assistance to your team right away by you being there physically, but maybe you can give them some sort of utility, right? As a controller, you can still provide some utility to the team, but you're not going to be there presently, okay? That's what dead space is. Now, I put bad positioning because that's usually where I find most players being at. Technically, this is not an ideal position for you, but this is what dead space is. Now, if you want to make sure that it is an ideal form of playing with your team, then this is where downtime comes in. Downtime can be the aspect of playing around your team, playing with your team, but there's nothing to do. In this position, you're giving yourself nothing to do. This is a bad position. However, in downtime, it could be something as simple as you're playing over here in heaven, and as you peak, you decide to reload. You have nothing to do. That's downtime. You got nothing else. Maybe you are jump peeking from boxes over here by dice. That is downtime, right? You're not really doing anything that's too crazy, but you're also not providing a negative towards your team. You're still with the team. You're still playing with your team. So this is where you can use these concepts to kind of work onto the next little bit, which is minimap control. The amount of times that I see a team not really look at their map is insane to me. I need you guys to be aware of your map. I need you guys to look at your map. Okay, if you're going to win games, you're going to do it by looking at the minimap. There's so much information on there that you can easily use and gather. I've seen so many players that are like in this position right here, and they see nothing there, and they're on the opposite side of the team. They're like, I wonder if they're A. And they have a player right here holding this position. I'm like, why are you wondering if they're A? They're clearly not A main, right? Right? Like they'll be wondering if they're about to like hit sight and they're ready to rotate for some reason, even though they have a player clearly holding a sight line. Look at your map. So again, there's some ways that you can use that downtime that we talked about to get better use of our minimap. So if you're reloading behind cover right here, let's say you take a fight, you go back in, look at your minimap. Where are those last question marks showing? What characters did we see? Oh, we saw 3 characters show up and I saw a Sova drone. That means Sova's around the corner, right? You can use that information to get a little bit more info for your team. When you're rotating safely, maybe you are moving in from back here to all the way back there, right? Maybe you're over here on bind, you're rotating from all the way here on A, you just place the wall and you're running all the way over to your team on B. That's downtime. You're doing something for your team, you're rotating, but at the same time, you got nothing to do. Look at your map, okay? Maybe you're hiding or lurking, right? Maybe you're being this player right here. You have nothing to do. Maybe while you're jiggling, you can stay down and just look at your map. You're going to get a lot of information even by not looking at anything. The absence of something is also good. I don't see anyone by A. That means that there's no imminent danger on A side. Let's see what's happening B. Sova, can you send a dart B? Brim, can you jump peek around mid? And you can get this really cool information just simply by asking questions, right? Again, when you're looking into these individual positions that I've just kind of shown here, you can use the minimap. Okay, use it as much as you can. It's a really valuable tool. If you're not using it, you're doing something wrong. Okay. Last but not least, priorities. I have a huge bone to pick with players that don't really identify these priorities. So a good example of this is you need to basically make a little pyramid, and at the top, therefore, the most important thing that's most present, right? And then you're going to start becoming a little bit more general, right? Is what do you need to deal with right now? Now, most pyramids is going to be like, what is the foundation, and then work upwards. Think of it in the top-down process. What is the most important thing? What is at the peak of my priorities? What is at the top of the list? What do you need to do right now? And what can you deal with later? Okay, you can look at these things for players that are having a really hard time making decisions. And this is a really good way of making a good decision-making tree. Okay, let's say you're this Omen right here. You see that your Jet is kind of holding towards this area over here on lane. You have a player right here that is holding this position over here by main, or maybe they're holding for like boathouse. Who knows? They're holding something, right? You as a player can identify this and realize these 2 players have this lane position covered. They have it locked down. That to me equals later. I don't have to deal with lane anymore. Lane is covered. I really don't have to touch lane. So what I can deal with is CT, and that is my now, right? That is what I can deal with right now. That is a form of prioritizing your decisions. If you're somebody that's coming in from CT and there is a 2v1 clutch and you're coming in, your priority is which is the first position that an enemy might peek me from. Could be here, could be here, could be here. It doesn't really matter, but you need to figure out where that position might be. If you know that there was a mid player, my priority would be to clear out this mid player. If we know that there's nobody mid, then my first priority would be to clear one of these two angles, right? Figure out your priority and then slowly work your way down into more generalized things. They're going to be on site. I got a clear site. Spike, yeah, I know spike is beeping, but I need to clear this back area first. And this is how you can kind of conceptualize better decisions, just by making that little tree in your head, making that little pyramid of decision making in your head. Last but not least, let's talk about goals. If you're with a team, and this is just for players that do manage to find themselves in a good team, rarely, occasionally, maybe all the time, depending on your rank, I need you guys to figure out if you can work with that team, because then you can kind of set up goals. Pay attention to what your team wants to do. It could be something as simple as them grouping up by B. That means they want to hit B. If you're a KJ, set up for an anti-flank on B, right? If you are somebody that's playing on the opposite side, then make sure you're holding that information and you're not dying too early because they're on B, right? Something like that. Set up crosses with your team if you can. Watch their backs if you can. Like, for example, in this scenario, this also would be an example. The goal of this player is to hold here, so I'm going to hold here for them, right? Or they're playing down and they're not holding anything. Then I can just kind of jump, peek around the corners or peek off of them, right? Set up different goals like that. And these are the strategies that I recommend best for players that are getting back into the game or slowly trying to transition it into winning more games, okay? These are the strategies that I have for you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be opening the question period now.